Hey everyone, it's the Haunting Hour here. Before we jump into today's video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoy the content. And if you have any thoughts on the stories in this video, feel free to drop them in the comments below. I always love hearing your feedback. Now, let's get into the terrifying stories. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you all have an awesome day. I've told this story once before, to a close friend, and even saying it out loud felt weird, like I was admitting to something I shouldn't have survived. But the more I think about it, the more I feel like I have to share it. Not because it's the scariest story ever, but because it was real. And because someone else might not be as lucky as I was. This happened last Saturday. I live in a quiet little town just outside a mid-sized city in the Midwest. I won't name it, but it's got all the usual stuff. Strip malls, fast food, old brick neighborhoods, a downtown with just enough bars to keep things interesting. That night, I was heading into the city to meet a friend for dinner and drinks. I wasn't planning to stay out late, just long enough to unwind a little. Since I knew I'd probably have a drink or two, I decided not to drive. I pulled out my phone and opened a rideshare app, one of the big ones everyone uses. It rhymes with drift. I've used it for years. Never had any real issues. There's GPS tracking, driver IDs, ride logs. It always felt safe. And uncautious by nature. I always double-check the license plate, make sure the face and the profile picture matches the driver, that kind of thing. The driver I got assigned to was named Devin. Not Devin, Devin, with an E. I remember thinking the spelling looked off, but his rating was 4.89. And he had done over 1,000 rides. His photo showed a guy in a gray hoodie with a short beard, probably in his late 30s. He had that tired but harmless look, the kind you see on guys who've been working too many hours. But from the moment I accepted the ride, things started to feel off. I was watching the map, waiting for his car to approach, and the little icon that represented his vehicle was acting strange. It kept jumping back and forth on the screen, like the GPS couldn't pin him down. One moment he was 3 blocks away, then suddenly a half-mile off, then back again. At first I thought it was my phone bugging out, but I checked my signal. It was fine. Just as I started wondering whether he was lost, the car pulled up out front. Black Chevy Impala. Older model, a little rougher on the edges. Paint was dull, and the windows were tinted darker than usual. Hanging from the rearview mirror was a pair of those fuzzy dice air fresheners, but they weren't swinging at all, just frozen there like they'd stiffened in place. I stepped out of my building and checked the license plate. It matched. Then I looked at the driver. It was the guy from the picture, technically, but he looked older. Not just aged, but worn down, like the photo was taken 10 years ago. His beard was scruffier, more gray. His eyes looked tired, but not in a regular way. They were just wrong, sunken in, too still. He didn't say a word, just stared ahead and waited for me to get in. I hesitated. My gut was already telling me something wasn't right. I can't explain it. It wasn't anything obvious, just a pressure, like something behind my ribs telling me to turn around. But it was cold. I didn't want to be rude, and I didn't want to cancel and wait another 20 minutes for someone else to show up. So I got in. The door shut with that heavy click. No sound from the driver. He didn't even glance back to confirm I was settled. He just pulled away from the curb and started driving. I waited for the familiar little chime, the one that tells you your ride has started. It never came. I glanced down at my phone. The app still said, waiting for driver to begin trip. My stomach dropped a little. I sat up straighter and glanced at the dashboard. There was no GPS running, no route instructions. The screen was blank. He was just driving. I opened my mouth to say something, but stopped. I looked out the window instead and realized we weren't heading toward downtown. We were going the opposite direction, away from the city. The streets got quieter, fewer cars, fewer houses, more empty storefronts, and narrow roads lined with trees and rusted-out fencing. I said, "Hey," not loud, but enough to break the silence. This isn't the right way. Still nothing. No response. Not a nod. Not a glance. I stared at my phone. The map confirmed it. He was taking me the wrong way. This wasn't a shortcut. It was the complete wrong direction. That pressure in my chest turned into panic. I thought about opening the door and jumping out, but we were going fast, and I didn't want to risk breaking something. Still, the thought crossed my mind more than once. I needed to do something, but I couldn't let him know I was scared. So I opened my call screen, tapped on a contact, but didn't press call. Instead, I held the phone to my ear and started pretending. "Hey," I said, loud and clear. "Yeah, I'm almost there, just past Jefferson. I see your building. You outside?" There was no Jefferson Street. I made it up, but it worked. As soon as I said that, the driver glanced up into the rearview mirror. His eyes locked onto mine for a split second. Something about that look made my stomach twist. Then, without a word, he jerked the wheel hard to the right. No turn signal, just a sudden lurch, and we were back on a bigger road, finally heading in the direction of downtown. Not a word was spoken, but I knew exactly what had just happened. He'd been taking me somewhere I wasn't supposed to go. And my little fake phone call, the idea that someone was watching, waiting for me, changed the plan. A few seconds later, the app chimed. Trip in progress. He finally started the ride in the app. I've never felt sicker. I sat frozen in the back seat, staring at my phone screen as the little dot slowly made its way toward my original destination. But he still wasn't using the regular route. He kept taking weird turns, dipping off side streets, weaving through neighborhoods that didn't add up. It felt like he was trying to stall, maybe hoping I'd hang up, maybe waiting for a better chance. We were 10 minutes away when he slowed down again, took another pointless turn. This time we circled the same block twice. I recognized a graffiti-covered stop sign we'd already passed. That's when I actually called my friend. This time, I wasn't pretending. She picked up, and I said it loud on speaker. "Hey, I'm outside. Just got here. I see your car. Be there in a sec." I didn't give her a chance to ask anything. I just ended the call. But I watched him in the mirror again. His face didn't change, but his hands tightened on the wheel. His knuckles went white. He didn't say a word. Just made one last turn, straight toward my friend's apartment complex. When the car finally pulled up to the curb, I didn't wait. I yanked the door open before we fully stopped and stepped out so fast I almost tripped. I slammed the door behind me and didn't look back. I could feel him watching me through the mirror, but I didn't give him the satisfaction. I walked past the front door, around the corner of the building, and ducked into a small side alley between apartments. I crouched down behind a trash bin and waited. I watched through a crack in the brick and saw the Impala sit there for a full minute. He didn't drive off right away. He just idled, like he was still hoping I'd come back, or that I'd made a mistake and he still had a chance. Then, finally, he pulled away slowly, not like he was rushing to pick up another ride, just lingering. Only after he disappeared down the street did I go inside. My hands were shaking so badly, I could barely punch in the building code. My friend opened the door and saw my face. She started asking what happened, but I couldn't talk yet. I went straight to her bathroom, locked the door, and sat on the edge of the tub, staring at my reflection like I didn't recognize myself. That night, I didn't sleep. I kept replaying every second in my head, every silent mile, every wrong turn. That look in the mirror, the way he didn't speak, didn't blink. I reported him to the app the next morning. I submitted screenshots, described everything, the glitchy map, the fake route, the fake silence. They said they'd look into it. 2 days passed. I got a call informing me that they have banned Devin from the app. I wanted to believe that they banned him, but then something happened that still makes my skin crawl. That afternoon, I got a ride request, not one I ordered. A push notification popped up on my screen while I was scrolling through messages. It was for a trip I never scheduled. I opened it, confused, and saw a black Chevy Impala on the map. Same make, same model, same license plate. Different name, different profile picture. But the face in the new photo wasn't looking at the camera. His head was tilted, like he was mid-turn. His eyes were invisible, just a faint blur, like the image had been pulled from security footage, not a selfie. I canceled the ride and deleted the app immediately. Haven't used it since. I tried pulling up the screenshot I'd taken from the night of the ride, where his car had glitched across the map. It was gone. The image showed an empty street. No car, no movement. Just a still frame of a dark road and nothing else. Like I'd imagined the whole thing. But I know I didn't. And I keep thinking, what if I hadn't said anything? What if I hadn't faked that phone call? What if I hadn't made up the street name? Where would he have taken me? What would have happened when we got there? I don't have the answers. But here's what I do know. Sometimes it's not the dark alley or the stranger on the corner that you should be afraid of. Sometimes it's the car that pulls up looking exactly how it's supposed to. With a clean record, a high rating, a face that looks normal. And it's the silence that gives it away. It's the empty GPS, the detours that don't make sense, the feeling in your gut you try to ignore. And sometimes, just sometimes, that car shows up again, with a different face, a different name, but the same eyes watching you in the mirror, still waiting, still hoping you'll let your guard down this time. I never wanted to be out there in the first place. I wasn't a farmer. I wasn't a survivalist. I didn't grow up chasing chickens or milking cows. I worked customer service at a big-name tech company for years, answering emails and apologizing to people for things I didn't break. I was living in a third-floor apartment just outside Austin, barely hanging on. Then the company laid off our whole department with one email. No warning, no severance. The next month, my car got repoed. Then my rent shot up. I remember sitting on the edge of my mattress, no frame, just the mattress, and staring at the wall like my brain had just powered off. Then came the call. My great-uncle Leo had died. I barely remembered the guy. All I knew was that he'd owned some land way out west. My mom used to say he was off the grid before it was cool. Anyway, he had no kids, no wife, and for some reason, he left his place to me. It sounded like the break I needed. No rent, no bills, just land. Quiet, a place to reset. I packed up my stuff, what little I had, and took a Greyhound. It dropped me off in a gas station town so small, I think they only had one working stoplight. From there, a guy in a pickup gave me a ride out to the edge of nowhere. The house looked like it had been swallowed by the land. One story, weather-beaten. The kind of place that groans when you walk through it. Paint was peeling off the siding, and every window buzzed with the sound of insects trapped between glass panes and torn screens. Still, I felt peace. There was no screaming traffic, no phones ringing, no upstairs neighbors thumping around. Just silence. Real silence. The kind that makes your ears ring at first. The kind your body has to relearn. For the first few nights, I slept better than I had in years. But then I started noticing the hum. It wasn't a noise exactly, more like a presence, a low vibration that pressed in on you, almost like the land was breathing. The weird part was, it felt good at first, calming. I figured it was just my nerves settling. One afternoon, I took a walk past the tree lying behind the house. That's when I saw it, a scarecrow. It stood dead center in the largest field, right where the ground dipped slightly. The thing was massive, at least 9 feet tall, maybe more. Its frame was made of rusted metal and old wood, and its arms stretched out like bent pipes, wrapped in layers of black coats and torn denim, stitched together with baling wire. Its legs were long, stiff, and rooted deep in the ground. But the head was a pumpkin, or maybe it had been a pumpkin at some point. Now it looked sunken and dry, like it had rotted and then dried out into this horrifying, leathery husk. Deep, jagged eyes had been carved in, along with a crooked mouth that wasn't smiling. It looked more like a grimace, the way someone looks when they die mid-scream. I just stood there for a long time staring. Something about it felt wrong. Not evil, not haunted, just wrong. It wasn't facing the road. It wasn't facing the sky. It was looking directly at the house. I should have torn it down right then, but something about the way it stood there, it felt necessary, like it was holding something back, like taking it down would invite something in. So I left it alone. Over the next few days, I noticed something strange. The usual animals you'd expect in a place like that, rabbits, squirrels, birds, never came near the field. Not even crows. I'd see them circling over the neighbor's land. They never once crossed into mine. Not even a single footprint. And the hum, it was louder now. Not in sound, but in pressure. Like the weight of the air had changed. I'd sit on the porch at dusk and feel it settle in around me, heavy and low, crawling up from the field. I stopped sleeping after a while. Not because I heard things or saw anything move, but because I felt it, watching. Like the scarecrow wasn't just scaring off animals anymore. Like maybe it was focused on me. One morning I went out with a pair of binoculars, just to really look at it from the house. I focused in on the pumpkin face, and my hands started to shake. The eyes had changed. They were deeper than before, almost wet. And the mouth was just slightly wider, like it had been smiling. No, not smiling, grinning. That was the first time I thought about burning it. I filled a can with gas and took it out with me just before dark. The sun was low, painting the sky orange and purple. The wind was still. Everything felt like it was holding its breath. I got within 20 feet of the scarecrow and stopped. I couldn't move. Not because I was scared, though I was, but because something in my legs wouldn't work. My knees locked. My body froze. The can slipped out of my hand and hit the dirt, but I couldn't bend down to pick it up. That's when I heard the humming again, but it wasn't coming from the house this time. It was coming from beneath the scarecrow, a deep, vibrating tone, like a generator spinning up underground. My stomach turned and my head started pounding. I stumbled back. The second I hit the edge of the field, the feeling vanished. The next morning, the gas can was gone. I locked every door, every window. I started hearing things after that. Slow dragging noises at night. Thumps from under the porch. One night I swore I heard my name whispered through the floorboards, like it had come from the crawl space. I didn't sleep. I barely ate. And then, one night, the scarecrow was gone. I woke up just after 3 a.m., not because of noise, but because of the absence of it. No wind, no insects, nothing. The air was dead. I looked out the kitchen window. The field was empty. I ran outside with a flashlight, heart pounding, half hoping it was just a trick of the light. It wasn't. The dirt where the scarecrow had stood was torn up, like something had been ripped from the ground. Drag marks stretched out toward the house, deep gouges in the soil. I followed them around to the back porch. They stopped at the crawl space hatch. The cover was open. I called a repair guy the next day to seal the hatch, paid him in cash and told him not to ask questions. The nights after that were worse. I'd wake up to creaking sounds under the floor. Sometimes just for a second, I'd feel that pressure again, the hum, directly under my bed. Once I swear I felt the mattress move, like something brushed up from below. I wanted to leave, but every time I packed a bag, I'd find it dumped out the next morning. My keys went missing twice. My phone screen cracked while charging. Emails I tried to send wouldn't go through. It's like the land wouldn't let me go. Then I made the mistake of walking past the neighbor's property. There was a house a few miles down the gravel road, abandoned for years. Just a collapsed roof and a dead cornfield. But someone had set up a scarecrow there now. Not someone, something. It was the same bent frame, the same long limbs. But this time, the head wasn't a pumpkin. It was a face, a human face, stretched and sewn around the top of the pole. The eyes were empty sockets, the lips pulled wide into that same awful grin. Hairs still clung to the scalp in patches. The skin looked freshly dried, like it hadn't been dead long. And God help me, I recognized it. It was the repair guy, the one who sealed the crawl space. I ran, didn't stop until I hit the porch, locked every door, every window. I pulled the fridge in front of the kitchen door, grabbed a hammer and sat in the hallway, knees pulled up to my chest. The hum was inside the house now, in the vents, in the walls. My ears rang with it. That night it came through the floor. I heard the boards groan. Then something long and straw-dry pressed against the inside of the wall. A scraping, like nails across wood. My bedroom door didn't open. It bent. The wood bowed inward, like something heavy was leaning on the other side. I held my breath. I didn't scream. I just waited. The door didn't open that night. But the next morning, I found pieces of hay in old denim in the hallway, and on the wall, written in something brown and dried, were 5 words. Let me try you on. I haven't left the house since. My phone won't work. GPS spins like a broken compass. The land doesn't want me to leave. I can hear footsteps in the attic now. Not fast, slow, measured, like something pacing, waiting for me to fall asleep. But I won't. Because I know what it wants. It doesn't want to scare birds. It doesn't even want to scare me. It wants to be me. If you ever inherit land from someone you barely knew, don't go. If you ever see a scarecrow standing somewhere no animal will go, run. And if you ever hear the ground hung beneath your feet, like it's breathing, burn it, or for it decides your face fits just right. When people ask why I only drink bottled water, I tell them it's just a habit. Sometimes I say my stomach's sensitive or that I don't trust old plumbing. It's easier than explaining the truth. Because the truth makes people look at you different, like you're cursed. But this really happened. And if it hadn't happened to me, I wouldn't believe it either. It started back in the summer of 2021. I just moved into a new apartment building in a quiet, out-of-the-way part of town. 5 stories, flat gray paint, old buzzer at the entrance that barely worked. It was one of those buildings you wouldn't even glance at unless you were looking for cheap rent. I had just landed a new job across town, and this was the only place I could afford on short notice. It wasn't much. 1 bedroom, small kitchen, old pipes, but it was mine. No roommates, no family around, just me. I figured that peace and quiet would be good for me. At first, it was. My first week there was uneventful. I unpacked, stocked the fridge, got used to the weird way the building creaked at night. The water pressure was weak, and sometimes it took a while for the hot water to kick in, but I chalked that up to age. I wasn't picky. But within 2 weeks, I noticed something strange. It started small. The water had a taste. Not strong, just off. Metallic, almost. At first I thought maybe the faucet was old, or maybe the pipes had rust in them. Nothing major. I let it run for a while and it seemed to clear up, so I didn't worry too much. But the taste got worse. By the 3rd week it had turned sour. Not the kind of sour you get from spoiled food, but something more chemical, like copper soaked in spoiled milk. I started brushing my teeth with bottled water. Just couldn't stand that flavor lingering on my tongue. Then came the smell. It was faint at first. Only in the morning. I'd turn the tap and get this brief whiff. Something damp and stale, like wet laundry left in the washer too long. But it got stronger every day. By the end of that month, my whole kitchen would stink every time I turned the sink on. It wasn't just metallic anymore. It was rot. Still, I didn't complain. I don't know why. Maybe I thought I was overreacting. Maybe I didn't want to look like the problem tenant a month after moving in. I just started buying bottled water for everything. Drinking, cooking, even boiling pasta. But then I started hearing others talk. It was small stuff at first. Passing comments in the elevator. Someone muttering in the hallway. Jokes about the dead water or flavor of the month. At first I thought it was coincidence, but it became clear. Other people were tasting it too. I remember one night specifically. I was heading down to toss my trash out when I passed one of the older guys from the 2nd floor. He was dragging 2 cases of bottled water into the elevator. He looked worn out, bags under his eyes, shirt soaked in sweat. Can't even boil this shit, he muttered to no one in particular. Smells like something crawled in the pipes and died. I didn't say anything, just nodded and kept walking, but my stomach dropped. Something was wrong. A week later, a notice showed up under my door. Dear tenants, we are aware of recent concerns regarding the taste and odor of the building's tap water. Please rest assured our maintenance team is investigating the issue. Our water is supplied via rooftop storage tanks, which will be inspected immediately. We thank you for your patience. That was it. No apology, no explanation, just a vague promise that they were looking into it. But by then, people were already leaving. I saw a couple pack their things and disappear overnight. Others said they were staying at friends' places or hotels until things got handled. The building got quieter. Hallways that used to echo with music or chatter went silent. Then Sunday came. I'll never forget that morning. It was 4 a.m. when I woke up. Not to a noise, but to a smell. I sat up in bed and gagged. It was everywhere. Thick, sour, and warm, like something rotting under my floorboards. I stumbled into the kitchen, eyes half shut, and turned on the light. Nothing looked wrong, but the smell was pouring out of the sink. It wasn't just in the water anymore. It was the water. I opened the tap for a second, and what came out looked sicker than usual. Still clear, but sluggish. The smell hit me in full force, something like old meat soaked in wet laundry. I slammed the tap off and stumbled back, hand over my mouth. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on my couch in the dark, holding a bottle of water I couldn't even drink, and waited for morning. Something deep in me said this wasn't just a plumbing problem. Something awful was sitting above us, and we've been living with it. Later that morning, around 10, the sirens came. 2 cop cars, 1 ambulance, a utility truck, and a van with people in yellow hazmat suits. They weren't subtle. People peeked from windows and doorways, whispering. No one came outside. I stayed in the hallway, staring through the little window at the end. They went up to the roof. That's where the water tanks were. Big, round drums I'd only seen once during moving day. I didn't even know they were still used. Looked like they belonged to a different century. 2 techs in yellow suits walked to the largest tank. I watched them undo the latch on the lid. One lifted it, and then I'll never forget this. The guy stumbled back, like someone punched him in the chest. He doubled over. The other one didn't move, just stood there, frozen. Eventually, both looked inside again. Then one turned away, pulling out a radio. They called for someone. And a few minutes later, police taped off the stairwell to the roof. The whisper started again that evening. I caught pieces through thin walls and half-open windows. They found something. No, someone. A kid, right? How long's she been up there? That night, a building-wide email confirmed it. They found a body, a little girl. She'd been reported missing nearly 3 months earlier. Her parents thought she went outside to play and just never came back. There'd been flyers, searches, but nothing turned up. No one ever checked the rooftop. The official report claimed she fell in by accident, that the tank lid had been left open temporarily, that she must have been playing up there and lost her balance, that she drowned. And for 3 months, 90 full days, her body sat in that water tank. 3 months of skin softening, peeling, breaking apart. 3 months of her swelling in the heat, of her hair coming loose, of her limbs slipping into unnatural angles. 3 months of us drinking it, boiling pasta in it, showering with it, brushing our teeth with her in it. When I read that last part, I threw up so hard I burst blood vessels in my face. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. My whole body itched like it was trying to shed itself. I scrubbed my tongue with mouthwash until it bled, and no matter what I did, I still tasted her. I moved out 2 weeks later, didn't tell anyone, didn't break my lease. I just packed up and left in the middle of the night, left furniture, clothes, everything. That place could keep it all. I never went back. Even now, years later, I can't drink from a faucet. I can't stand showers that smell faintly metallic. I carry bottled water everywhere. I double-check hotels. I always ask where their water comes from, because something in me broke that day, and it never healed. Sometimes late at night, I'll be brushing my teeth or filling a glass, and I'll feel it again. That creeping taste, that faint, bitter flavor, like pennies, like iron, like something that should have stayed buried. I'll freeze, hold my breath, run the water, let it flow. And sometimes, when I look down into the drain, I swear I see something shift. Just for a second, a pale shape slipping deeper, out of sight, like a hand reaching back. But there's nothing, always nothing, except the taste and the memory and the thought that maybe she wasn't alone up there. Because lately, I've been hearing it again, at night, in the pipes. A splash, a soft knock, a drip that never ends. Like something's moving inside the walls, just waiting for another lid to open. So if your water smells strange, if it tastes bitter or makes your skin crawl, don't ignore it, don't drink it, and whatever you do, don't look down the drain, because some things don't stay hidden forever. I used to be a long-haul truck driver, not because I loved the road or had some deep desire to see America through a windshield. I just liked being alone. After my divorce, there was no one waiting at home. No kids, no friends who kept in touch. I'd pick up jobs that kept me moving. Moving felt better than thinking. This happened a couple years ago. I was running a route from Reno to Helena. Nothing complicated, steel parts and hardware. Easy run. I'd done that trip a dozen times and knew the roads by memory. That day, rain started falling sometime after Red Bluff. The kind that doesn't pound down but lingers, cold and misty, soaking everything without you even noticing at first. I had planned to stop at a rest area near Elk Creek, but when I pulled in, the place gave me the creeps. The vending machine buzzed like it was struggling to stay alive, and the bathroom smelled like someone had been living in it. So I decided to keep driving a bit farther. That's when I saw the sign, Exit 34, Stonefield, no services. It struck me because I didn't remember ever seeing it before, and I knew this stretch of road. The sign looked brand new, like it had been installed recently. Fresh paint, reflective letters, no rust. I slowed down, thinking maybe it was a smaller pull-off I'd missed before. Somewhere quiet to take a nap before pushing on. I took the exit. The off-ramp curved sharply, sharper than any highway exit I'd ever taken. The guardrails had patches of rust, and the asphalt turned old and cracked almost immediately. As I came out of the curve, the trees started closing in fast on both sides. Dense, wet branches drooped into the road like no one had trimmed them in years. The road narrowed, and the mist thickened. It felt like I'd driven into a part of the state that hadn't seen sunlight in weeks. The temperature dropped inside the cab. I didn't touch the AC, but my fingers started feeling numb on the wheel. And then I saw her. She was standing just off the road, partially hidden by the trees. She looked about 20, completely soaked, arms wrapped tightly across her stomach, like she was holding herself together. Her clothes clung to her, her long hair stuck to her cheeks, and she didn't seem to care that a semi was barreling toward her. I slowed down and stopped. She didn't move or signal. She just stood there, staring toward the road like she'd been waiting forever. I rolled the passenger window down a bit. "You okay?" No response. I hesitated, then leaned over and unlocked the door. She stepped into the truck slowly, like her legs didn't want to work. She climbed into the seat without saying a word. Her shoes made a wet, squishing sound against the rubber floor mat. Her clothes weren't just soaked. They looked like they'd been that way for a long time. A gray sweater clung to her skin, and a faded denim skirt hung stiff with dampness. She stared forward, unmoving. I grabbed the emergency blanket from behind the seat and handed it to her. Then I took off the flannel I was wearing and offered that too. She didn't thank me. She didn't even look at me. She just held both in her lap, like she didn't know what they were for. I pulled the truck back onto the narrow road, hoping it would reconnect with the main highway soon. We drove in silence. The rain tapped softly on the windshield, and the wipers kept a slow rhythm. I didn't ask her name, didn't ask where she was going. I just kept driving. After about 15 minutes, she finally spoke. "I died on this road." Her voice was low and flat, not dramatic, just tired, like she was stating a fact. I turned to look at her, but the passenger seat was empty. There was no sign of her. There was no blanket, no flannel, no puddle on the floor. The seat was dry, untouched. I slammed on the brakes, heart pounding, and pulled the rig onto the shoulder. I twisted in my seat, scanning every inch of the cab. There was nothing out of place. The door was locked. The mirror showed the empty lane behind me. There was no sound except the steady tick of the engine. I stayed there for a while, gripping the wheel like it could ground me. Eventually, I got back on the highway. Later that night, I stopped at a diner on the edge of a town I didn't recognize. The waitress was older, probably in her late 60s, with a calm but tired demeanor. "You look like you've seen a ghost," she said as she poured my coffee. "Maybe I have," I said. "You ever hear of a place called Stonefield?" She paused. Her eyes shifted to the window for a second before she answered. "There used to be a mill town by that name," she said. "Way out past the ridge. A flood wiped most of it out in '94 when the dam burst. River took out the road. They didn't rebuild." I sipped my coffee. "Did anyone die?" She nodded slowly. "There was a girl, teenager. Car went off the bend during the storm. They said she was trapped inside. By the time anyone found the wreck, it was empty." "Empty?" "Car was halfway buried in river silt, doors locked, nobody. After that night, things started to change. I avoided exit 34 after that. I mapped my routes carefully, even if it added time. I kept the radio on at all times. I tried to stay in populated truck stops, but it didn't matter. She started showing up anyway, only when it rained. It always began with a chill inside the cab, not air conditioning, a different kind of cold, like someone had opened a freezer door behind me. The mirrors would fog slightly, even if I'd just cleaned them. Then the smell would hit. Not strong, not all at once, just faint, like river mud and mold creeping in. Sometimes, I'd see her reflection in the passenger window, even though no one was sitting there. Once I came back from a rest stop bathroom and opened the driver's door. My flannel jacket was folded neatly on the passenger seat. I hadn't seen it since the night I gave it to her. But there it was, dry, clean, and smelling faintly like mildew. Another night, I woke up in the truck's sleeper cabin, and the blanket I hadn't used in months was pulled up to my chest. The cab was colder than usual. The inside of the windshield was fogged, like someone had been breathing on it. And then there was the humming, a low, off-key tune, drifting in from nowhere. It didn't sound angry, just forgotten. Something a kid might hum on a swing, alone and lost. I started renting motel rooms, no more sleeping in the truck. But the chill followed me. One rainy night, I woke up standing in my front yard, barefoot. My porch light was on and the front door was wide open behind me. My clothes were soaked. My hands were pruned, like I'd been in water for hours. I looked down and realized I was holding something. My old truck keys. I hadn't touched them since I sold the rig months earlier. That night changed everything. I quit the road for good, moved to South, found a quiet job at a lumberyard. I kept my head down, didn't talk much. I thought I could outrun it if I stayed far enough away. But the rain found me. Every time a storm rolls in, I feel the same heaviness in my limbs, that pressure behind my eyes. I start humming again without realizing it. My fingers twitch like they want to hold a wheel. And my dreams? I dream of narrow roads that spiral in too tight. I dream of standing just off the pavement, soaking wet, watching headlights approach. I dream of being picked up and disappearing before they ask where I'm headed. I've started losing time again, waking up in the hallway, finding the front door unlocked. Sometimes I find my boots soaked through in the morning, sitting on the doormat like someone else wore them out. Last week, I opened my closet and found a flannel jacket hanging neatly inside. I hadn't seen it in almost a year. It was dry, but it smelled like river water, and the cuffs were worn in a way I didn't recognize, frayed in spots where I'd never touched. It wasn't mine anymore. I used to think I just picked up a ghost. Now I'm not so sure. I gave her warmth. I gave her space, and I think she gave me something back. Not a curse, not a haunting, a script, a pattern, a role to play. Someday soon, on some wet winding road, someone's going to see me standing there, cold, silent, arms crossed over my chest. Maybe they'll slow down. Maybe they'll roll the window down and ask if I'm okay. And maybe they'll hand me their jacket. Maybe I'll sit down without saying a word. And maybe I'll disappear before they even ask where I'm going.